The recycled air hummed its familiar lullaby around me, a constant companion in this metal tube we called an office. Another cross-country haul, another opportunity to perfect the art of serene professionalism while internally cataloging every misplaced overhead bin item and assessing the stress levels of my fellow crew. That's just how I operate, you know? Meticulous. Predictable. It keeps the chaos at bay, or, at least, the perception of it. My name's Alice, by the way. 25, flight attendant, and until recently pretty convinced I had life all figured out. Then there's Cynthia. The first time I really saw her, not just register her as another uniform in the briefing room, was maybe 6 months ago. She'd just joined our crew rotation. I remember she had this cascade of fiery red hair, like a sunset caught mid-fall, pulled back in a neat, professional bun that still managed to look rebelliously vibrant. And her eyes green, like polished emeralds, with a glint that always seemed to be holding on to a private joke. My initial thought was, right, she's going to be a lot. And she was. But in a way that was completely disarming. While I was busy making sure the beverage cart was perfectly stocked, alphabetized even, Cynthia would be laughing with passengers, her voice carrying just enough to be heard over the engine drone, but never so loud as to be intrusive. She had this way of making people feel seen, truly seen, even in the blur of a 5-hour flight.
Me?
I was more about efficient service, a pleasant smile, and then fading back into the galley. Cynthia? She was the galley, the aisle, the whole damn plane. Our styles were, let's just say, complementary. I'd silently appreciate her ability to calm a fussy toddler with a wink, while she'd probably just think I was there. Or so I told myself. But then the little things started. Alice, she'd say, leaning in a little as we prepped for service, the scent of her citrus perfume a surprising counterpoint to the sterile cabin air. You've got a real knack for those perfect coffee pours. Mine always end up looking like a disaster. She'd offer a quick, genuine smile, and I'd feel a strange warmth spread through me, which I promptly attributed to the galley's proximity to the oven. Just a professional compliment, right? Then there were the eye contacts. Not fleeting glances, but these deliberate moments across the aisle, or over the heads of passengers, where her green eyes would meet mine and hold, a silent challenge mixed with something else I couldn't quite decipher. Sometimes a slow, knowing smile would spread across her lips, just for me, and I'd find myself looking away first, a blush creeping up my neck that had no business being there. I'd internally scold myself. It was just Cynthia being Cynthia. Open. Friendly. So, why did it feel different when it was directed at me? One time, during a particularly bumpy descent, I'd stumbled slightly, and her hand was there, quick and firm, on my lower back, steadying me. It was only for a second, a fleeting touch through the fabric of my uniform, but it lingered. My breath hitched. She just offered a quick, "Careful there," her voice low, before moving on to check on a passenger. But that warmth, that sudden rush, stayed with me. I spent the rest of the flight replaying that single, casual touch, my mind trying to make sense of the unexpected current it had sent through me. It was just a helping hand, nothing more. As we cleared the plane after landing, the cabin lights reflecting off the polished floor, I caught her eye from across the empty aisle. She was leaning against a seat, looking completely at ease, and as our gazes locked, that knowing smile returned, a little wider this time, a definite sparkle in those green eyes. It was a silent invitation, a question I wasn't ready to answer, a feeling I hadn't prepared for. And as I turned away to gather my bag, I felt a distinct sense of unease settle in my gut, mixed with a curious, almost thrilling, pull. This was going to be interesting. The memory of Cynthia's parting smile lingered, a strange aftertaste in the otherwise sterile calm of my post-flight routine. It wasn't just a smile, not really. It was a puzzle, and I, the meticulous Alice, found myself spending an unsettling amount of mental energy trying to solve it. My mind, usually a well-organized filing cabinet of flight procedures and passenger needs, now seemed to have a whole new section dedicated solely to Cynthia. I started noticing everything. The way her red hair would sometimes catch the light in the galley, blazing like a tiny, contained fire. How she moved through the cramped cabin with such an unhurried grace, each step a fluid dance, never a clumsy bump. Her laugh, a genuine, throaty sound that could break through the monotony of a 6-hour journey and somehow make the stale air feel a little lighter. I found myself anticipating her presence on our shared flights, a quiet flutter in my chest that I dismissed as professional camaraderie. What else could it be? Cynthia, though, seemed intent on unraveling my carefully constructed composure. Her dark-bellied charm, as I was starting to secretly label it, was insidious. It wasn't overt, never anything I could point to and say, "Aha, she's flirting." It was subtler, like the slight tilt of her head when I was speaking, giving me her full, undivided attention, as if my words held the secrets of the universe. "You know, Alice," she mused one quiet afternoon, as we waited for boarding to finish, her voice a low murmur meant only for me. "You have this incredible way of making everything feel managed, like a beautifully wound clock. But I bet there's a whole whirlwind hiding behind those calm eyes." She offered one of her slow, knowing smiles, and I felt a prickle of heat rise to my cheeks. She was challenging me, wasn't she? Peeling back layers I didn't even know I was presenting. My usual retort of just doing my job felt suddenly inadequate, flimsy. During a layover in Barcelona, Cynthia, with a casualness that belied the sudden racing of my heart, suggested, "My treat. There's this little tapas place I know, tucked away from the tourist traps. We could, escape the hotel for a bit." The evening was a blur of rich, savory flavors and the clinking of glasses. The restaurant was dimly lit, the air thick with the murmur of Spanish conversation and the scent of garlic and paprika. I wore a simple black dress, feeling strangely exposed compared to my uniform. Cynthia, in a flowing emerald green top that made her eyes sparkle even more, looked effortlessly stunning. The warmth I felt that night, the flush on my skin, I emphatically told myself it was the vibrant energy of the city, the unfamiliar zest of the spices. It couldn't possibly be the way Cynthia's knee occasionally brushed mine under the small table, or the way her hand would momentarily rest on mine as she gestured, explaining the ingredients of a dish. "So, you're usually more of a planner, then?" she asked, her gaze fixed on me over the rim of her wine glass, making me feel utterly transparent. "Do you ever just let go?" My breath caught. It was a question, but it felt like an invitation. An almost imperceptible shift in her posture, a slight lean forward, closed the small distance between us. When I laughed, a nervous, breathy sound, her hand reached out, gently resting on my arm. Her fingers lingered briefly. "It suits you, Alice," she murmured, her voice a low thrum that resonated deep within me. "This relaxed version of you." Later, walking back through the narrow, cobbled streets, the night air cool against my skin, she walked closer than was strictly necessary. Her arm brushed mine repeatedly, a soft, intermittent contact that sent tingles through my body. My mind was a battlefield. Was she just being friendly, in her overtly charming way? Or was this something else? Something I hadn't dared to name, hadn't even consciously acknowledged existed within me. The sensations were confusing, exhilarating, terrifying. As we reached the hotel, standing awkwardly by my door, the silence stretched, charged with unspoken possibility. Cynthia's eyes, those incredible green eyes, held mine, and for a long moment, the vibrant energy of Barcelona faded, leaving only the two of us, and the dizzying, unsettling question hanging between us. What was she doing to me? And more importantly, what was I allowing to happen? I opened my door, stepping inside, but felt a strange pull to look back. She was still there, a soft, enigmatic smile on her lips, watching me. I closed the door, my heart pounding a rhythm that felt entirely new, entirely dangerous. The week that followed the Barcelona trip was a blur of internal monologue. Every interaction with Cynthia felt magnified, every glance loaded with a new, unsettling significance. The air between us had thickened, becoming something palpable, something that hummed with a low-frequency current whenever we were in proximity. I found myself obsessively replaying our conversations, dissecting her words, her smiles, her touches, searching for an explanation, an escape route from the burgeoning feelings I was trying so desperately to ignore. Cynthia, of course, merely turned up the dial. Her teasing became more pointed, albeit still cloaked in that playful, disarming charm. "You know, Alice," she commented one afternoon, as I was meticulously checking the lavatories, a task I usually performed with robotic efficiency. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, watching me with an amused glint in her eyes. "You're so focused, so dedicated. It's almost as if you're trying to hide something." My heart gave a little jolt. Had she seen through me? Like what? I managed, my voice a little too tight. She just smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe a secret desire to just throw off the uniform and dance in the aisles." She winked, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. It was so innocent, so harmless, yet it felt like a direct hit. She was asking me to imagine myself differently. Another time, during an overnight flight to Tokyo, most of the passengers were asleep, and the cabin was hushed. We were both in the galley, nursing cups of tea. Cynthia stretched, a languid, graceful movement that made her uniform pull taut in all the right places. "My shoulders are killing me," she murmured, sighing dramatically. She turned to me, her green eyes twinkling mischievously. "You look like you're good with knots, Alice. Any chance you'd have a magic touch for these tired muscles?" My breath hitched. The request was casual, but the subtext was anything but. My mind screamed danger, but my body, to my utter betrayal, felt a sudden, inexplicable pull. I hesitated, then, against my better judgment, found myself saying, "I can try." I moved behind her, my hands hovering for a moment before settling on her shoulders. The warmth of her skin, even through the thin fabric of her uniform shirt, was immediate and startling. I started to knead gently, trying to focus on technique, on the professional distance I usually maintained. But it was impossible. Her muscles were tense, but softened under my touch, and I could feel the subtle shift in her posture, a deeper relaxation. Her head tilted back slightly, exposing the elegant curve of her neck, and I noticed the faint scent of her perfume again, closer now, more intoxicating. "Oh, that's good, Alice," she said softly, a sound that vibrated through my fingertips. "You really do have a magic touch." I knew it. Her hand reached up, gently covering one of mine, pressing it deeper into her shoulder. The contact was electric, sending a jolt straight through my arm and into my chest. My mind raced. This was too much. This was definitely not professional. This was intimate. I pulled my hands away abruptly, my heart hammering. "Better?" I asked, my voice a little too sharp. Cynthia turned, a soft smile on her face, her eyes holding that familiar, knowing glint.
"Much."
"Thank you, Alice." She paused, her gaze dropping to my lips for a fleeting second before returning to my eyes. "You know," she said, her voice dropping to a low, husky whisper, "you don't always have to be so composed, Alice. Sometimes it's okay to feel things." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning. I felt utterly exposed, as if she had peeled back my skin and looked directly into the churning maelstrom of confusion and longing inside me. My perfectly organized internal world was now a chaotic mess. My ingrained perceptions of myself, my understanding of my own feelings, were being systematically challenged by this woman, by her audacious charm, her persistent, gentle allure. I wanted to pull away, to run and hide from this unfamiliar intensity, but a deeper, more primal part of me, a part one hadn't known existed, desperately wanted to lean in, to surrender to the intoxicating pull she exerted. I escaped to the lavatory, splashing cold water on my face, staring at my reflection. Who was this woman? This Alice who felt a thrill at a touch, a blush at a glance, a dizzying ache in the pit of her stomach at the sound of a certain voice. The image staring back was pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and a strange, nascent yearning. I was profoundly unsettled, caught between the safe, familiar world I knew and the thrilling, terrifying precipice Cynthia was gently, relentlessly, leading me towards. The weight of my internal struggle with Cynthia's magnetic pull continued to grow, a heavy, unspoken truth beneath the polite veneer of our professional interactions. Every flight felt like a tightrope walk. I was constantly aware of her, hyper-tuned to her movements, her voice, the way she might glance my way. My mind, a usually efficient machine, was now plagued with constant, distracting thoughts of her. Today, however, promised a temporary reprieve, or so I hoped. It was a routine flight, a familiar route, and for a fleeting moment, I almost allowed myself to relax into the predictable rhythm. I started my pre-flight checks with my usual meticulousness, securing the galley carts, double-checking the emergency equipment. My uniform felt a little tighter around my chest than usual, a physical manifestation of the anxiety that had taken root. Cynthia arrived, a burst of vibrant energy as always, her red hair tied back neatly, but still managing to exude a playful rebelliousness. She caught my eye as she stowed her bag, a quick, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. It was a knowing smile, one that seemed to acknowledge the unspoken tension between us. My stomach fluttered. Just a fleeting glance, Alice, I told myself, just a glance. During boarding, we worked seamlessly together, a practiced dance that belied the electric current thrumming beneath the surface. As I helped a passenger with an oversized carry-on, I felt Cynthia's presence beside me, her warmth radiating just a few inches away. "Need a hand with that, Alice?" she murmured, her voice a low, melodic hum. Her fingers brushed mine as she reached for the bag, a brief, accidental touch that sent a jolt through my arm. My breath hitched, and I quickly pulled my hand away, my cheeks warming. She just offered a soft, knowing smile, those emerald eyes twinkling with amusement. Later, as the plane leveled off and the first beverage service began, Cynthia and I found ourselves in a brief, quiet moment in the galley. The soft drone of the engines provided a comforting backdrop to the otherwise busy cabin. "Rough week?" she asked, her voice softer than usual, her gaze searching mine. "You seem a little preoccupied." I managed a strained smile. "Just a lot on my mind, you know? The usual." I tried to make it sound dismissive, but her eyes held mine, unwavering, seeing more than I wanted to reveal. There was a genuine concern etched on her beautiful face, a tenderness that both disarmed and terrified me. She reached out, her fingers gently touching my arm, a comforting, brief contact. "Well, if you ever need to talk or just vent," she offered, her voice a low, understanding murmur. "I'm a pretty good listener." Her touch, her words, chipped away at my resolve. I wanted to confide in her, to unburden the confusing mess of emotions she herself had stirred. But the fear of what that might unleash, the shattering of my carefully constructed world, held me captive. I simply nodded, managing a week, "Thanks, Cynthia." Just as I was about to turn away, a voice crackled through the intercom, jarringly loud against the quiet hum of the cabin. "This is your captain speaking. Folks, we've just received an update regarding unexpected weather conditions ahead. We're encountering a rather severe storm system, and we anticipate some turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." My heart gave a sudden, sickening lurch. Unexpected severe weather. Those words, spoken in the captain's calm, professional tone, still sent a shiver down my spine. The plane, which had been flying so smoothly, suddenly gave a gentle lurch. A low rumble started, a distant growl that rapidly escalated. My eyes met Cynthia's across the galley. The teasing glint was gone, replaced by a flicker of concern, mirroring my own. The plane shuddered again, a more pronounced jostle this time, and the overhead bins rattled ominously. A few gasps rippled through the passenger cabin. The soft, ambient cabin lighting flickered once, then twice. The gentle hum of the engines was now punctuated by the unsettling creaks and groans of the aircraft. My professional facade, already tenuous, began to crack. This wasn't just a little bumpy air. This was different. A cold dread started to unfurl in the pit of my stomach. The calm before the storm was over. The storm itself was upon us. The gentle lurch quickly transformed into a violent, stomach-dropping plunge. My breath caught in my throat, a silent gasp stolen by the sudden, terrifying drop. The low rumble became a deafening roar, a frantic protest from the plane as it wrestled with the unseen forces outside. Overhead bins, previously secured, sprang open with startling clangs, disgorging bags and coats that tumbled through the cabin like weightless debris. Screams erupted, sharp, panicked cries from passengers who, only moments before, had been engrossed in movies or sleep. Children wailed, their fear echoing the primal terror swelling within me. The cabin lights, which had flickered, now extinguished completely for a horrifying second, plunging us into an eerie, disorienting darkness before sputtering back to a dim, sickly yellow glow. The air grew thick with the smell of ozone and the palpable dread of 100 terrified souls. I gripped the edge of the galley counter, my knuckles white, my body swaying violently with each brutal lurch and shudder. My training, my meticulous adherence to protocol, evaporated in an instant. This wasn't a drill. This was real. My mind, usually so clear, was a fractured mess of worst-case scenarios. We were going down. This was it. My professional veneer, so carefully cultivated, shattered. I felt an uncontrollable shake begin in my hands, quickly spreading through my entire body. I stumbled back, seeking refuge in the small, recessed corner of the galley, my knees feeling like jelly. Sinking to the floor, I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to make myself smaller, invisible. Silent tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging, blurring the terrifying sight of the tossing cabin. I buried my face in my knees, a raw, animalistic sound escaping my throat. I was utterly, completely paralyzed by fear. Amidst the chaos, amidst my own complete surrender to terror, I saw a flash of red hair. Cynthia. Even in the dim, chaotic light, her presence was a beacon. Though her face was pale, her features etched with a clear, undeniable fear, she moved. She moved with an almost superhuman resolve, bracing herself against the violent jerks, her hands reaching out, securing a loose piece of equipment, then another. Her voice, though strained, was clear and surprisingly steady as she shouted reassurances to passengers, her green eyes scanning the cabin, looking for anyone who needed help. She was shaking. I could see the subtle shake in her frame as she braced herself against a bulkhead, but she pushed through it, a force of nature against the storm. Then her eyes found me, huddled in that corner, weeping, utterly broken. Her gaze softened, a flicker of profound concern replacing the professional resolve. Despite the terrifying lurches and groans of the plane, she pushed through the aisle, stepping over fallen items, her movements a testament to her courage. She reached me, dropping to her knees beside me, her own body visibly shaking from the effort and the fear, yet her focus was entirely on me. "Alice," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the roar, yet it cut through the din, reaching me. "Alice, look at me." I reluctantly lifted my head, my vision blurred by tears, but her face was there, close, intensely present. Her eyes, usually so full of mischievous glint, were wide with concern, but also with a strange, fierce tenderness. Then, she pulled me into her arms. It was a tight, desperate embrace, her own body shaking against mine, a silent confirmation of her terror. But in that moment, nestled against her, feeling the solid warmth of her, a sliver of clarity broke through my paralyzing fear. Her touch, even in this maelstrom, was a lifeline. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice rough, strained but steady, her cheek pressed against my hair. "We'll be okay, Alice. Just breathe." But I couldn't just breathe. All the carefully constructed walls, all the internal battles, all the suppressed feelings, shattered in that single, terrifying, beautiful moment. Facing what felt like the absolute end, the only truth that mattered, the only words that clawed their way to the surface, were for her. I care for you, Cynthia," I choked out, the words ripped from the deepest, most vulnerable part of me, raw with tears and terror. "I'm so sorry, I had to say it. I care for you." Before she could respond, before another violent shudder of the plane could swallow the moment, I pushed myself up, driven by an instinct I didn't recognize. My hands cupped her face, my fingers tangling in her soft, red hair, and my lips found hers. It was a desperate, raw, tear-soaked kiss, born of absolute fear and an even more absolute, undeniable feeling. For a split second, I felt her hesitate, a tiny, almost imperceptible stiffening. Then, with a heartbreaking intensity that matched my own despair, she returned the kiss. Her lips were soft, yet firm, tasting of salt and fear and something impossibly sweet. Our tears mingled, blurring the line between us, making us one in that moment of profound, terrifying honesty. The world outside raged, the planes screamed around us, but for a suspended beat, there was only the fierce, desperate connection of our kiss, a confession spoken not just with words, but with every fiber of my being. The kiss, desperate and raw, seemed to defy the chaos swirling around us. For a long, suspended moment, the world outside, the screaming passengers, the groaning metal, the terrifying drops, faded into a muffled, distant roar. There was only the press of her lips against mine, the salty tang of our mingled tears, and the fierce, undeniable thrum of a connection forged in the crucible of fear. Her hands, which had been bracing her against the bulkhead, moved to cup my face, holding me close, deepening the kiss with a tenderness that contradicted the violence of our circumstances. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the maelstrom began to subside. The violent plunges lessened, replaced by a still bumpy, but less frantic, jostling. The deafening roar of the wind eased, settling into a more manageable, if still unnerving, shudder. A collective gasp of relief, weak but palpable, rippled through the cabin. Through the intercom, the captain's voice crackled again, remarkably calm this time. "Folks, this is your captain again. We've just cleared the worst of that storm system. Looks like we're through the thick of it. We're on approach to our destination, and we anticipate a smooth landing in approximately 20 minutes. Our apologies for the unexpected excitement. Thank you for your patience." The words, so mundane in their delivery, were like a bomb, a declaration of survival. Cynthia and I slowly pulled apart, our faces tear-streaked and flushed, our breathing heavy and ragged. The lingering taste of the kiss, the astonishing confession, the shared terror, it all hung thick and potent in the air between us, an invisible, charged veil. We looked at each other, our eyes wide, a mixture of raw vulnerability, profound relief, and an unspoken question reflecting in their depths. There were no words for this moment, no logical explanation, just the lingering echoes of a near-death experience and a confession that had ripped through all my carefully constructed defenses. A passenger called out, a soft whimper for help, and the professionalism, the ingrained training, clicked back into place almost instinctively. We moved, helping the shaken passengers, securing the last of the fallen items. My movements felt strangely disconnected, as if my body was operating on autopilot while my mind was still replaying the kiss, the words, the terrifying, exhilarating plunge. As I helped a trembling older woman fasten her seatbelt, I felt Cynthia's presence beside me, her hand briefly resting on my back in a gesture of shared understanding, not just professional courtesy. Our eyes met over the woman's head, and this time there was no playful glint, no mischievous challenge. Only a deep, almost overwhelming understanding. We had faced death together, and in that face, I had confessed my heart. The plane descended, the ground steadily growing larger and more real outside the window. The tarmac, when we finally touched down, felt impossibly solid, impossibly safe beneath the rattling wheels. A wave of collective relief, a quiet murmur of gratitude, swept through the cabin. Passengers clapped, a spontaneous, heartfelt burst of applause for the pilots and for simply being alive. As we taxied to the gate, Cynthia moved to the front of the cabin, offering a bright, if slightly strained, smile to the disembarking passengers. I stayed in the rear, my gaze following her. The memory of her lips, the sensation of her body pressed against mine, was so vivid it felt like it had just happened. The gravity of what I had said, what we had done, settled over me. There was no going back now. My world had irrevocably shifted on its axis, shaken by the storm and utterly transformed by a kiss and a desperate, tearful confession. The relief of being alive was immense, but the quiet, simmering question of what came next, of what this new, raw truth meant for us, was almost as overwhelming. The flight was over, but the real journey had just begun. The hotel room felt oddly sterile after the chaos of the flight, the silence pressing in on me, amplifying the frantic rhythm of my heart. The fear had subsided, replaced now by a dizzying cocktail of relief, confusion, and a burgeoning, terrifying hope. Every surface seemed to reflect the memory of Cynthia's kiss, the desperate urgency of my confession. My mind replayed it endlessly, a cinematic loop of terror and tender desperation. I had just stepped out of a long, scalding shower, trying to wash away the lingering dread of the flight, when a soft, hesitant knock echoed through the room. My breath caught. I knew, instinctively, who it was. My hands shook as I reached for the doorknob, the cool metal a stark contrast to the heat rising in my cheeks. Cynthia stood there, her vibrant energy subdued, her fiery hair a little disheveled from the day's ordeal, her green eyes wide and uncertain. She wore a simple t-shirt and sweats, looking softer, more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. "Can I come in, Alice?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper, barely audible above the pounding in my ears. I nodded, unable to speak, stepping back to let her enter. The air in the room thickened, charged with unspoken words, with the memory of fear and the lingering taste of a kiss. She walked in slowly, hesitantly, and stopped just a few feet from me. The silence stretched, heavy and expectant. "About what you said," she began, her gaze searching mine, "and what we did." Her voice trailed off, her eyes dropping to her hands, which she wrung nervously. This was a side of Cynthia I hadn't seen, the confident, unflappable charm replaced by a fragile uncertainty. I felt a blush creep up my neck, hot and undeniable. My throat was tight, making words impossible. All I could do was stand there, silently, hoping my gaze conveyed the tumultuous sea of emotions churning within me. She took a tentative step closer, then another. Her hand reached out, slowly, her fingers gently taking mine. Her touch was soft, hesitant, yet sent a jolt of electricity through me, a familiar current that had once terrified me, but now felt like a welcome homecoming. Her thumb began to trace light, circling patterns on the back of my hand, a silent question, a tender reassurance. "Alice," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper again, her eyes finally lifting to meet mine. I felt it too. Everything you said. Everything we... She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Her eyes, glistening with unshed tears, spoke volumes. She leaned in, slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Her lips first touched my forehead, a soft, feather-light brush that sent shivers down my spine. Then her cheek, a warm, tender pressure. Slowly, deliberately, her mouth moved, a whisper of a contact against my skin, until it finally found mine. This kiss was nothing like the desperate, raw confession in the plane. This was a soft, tender meeting, a silent question, and a willing answer. It was a gentle unraveling, a slow peeling back of layers that had long protected me. There was no urgency, only a profound, overwhelming sense of being exactly where I was meant to be. Her lips were soft, yielding, and I responded with a hesitant tenderness that surprised even myself. Our movements became a clumsy, beautiful dance of discovery. Her hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer, and mine instinctively wrapped around her, clutching the soft fabric of her t-shirt. There was an awkwardness in our inexperience, a slight hesitation as we navigated this new, intimate territory. But beneath the awkwardness was an undeniable current of feeling, a gentle, insistent pull that urged us forward. We stumbled backward onto the bed, a soft landing, our lips never parting. The world outside, the fear, the plane, it all receded, replaced by the warmth of her body against mine, the gentle presence of her hands, the soft murmurs that escaped our lips. It was a hesitant unveiling of feelings long suppressed by me, a tender exploration of newly acknowledged emotions. Every touch, every whisper, every breath felt like a profound discovery, a validation of a connection that had blossomed in the most terrifying of circumstances. It was, in its purest, most vulnerable form, a story of two people finding each other, beginning with a clumsy, earnest grace, wrapped in overwhelming relief and an astonishing tenderness. Sunlight, soft and golden, filtered through the hotel room curtains, painting ethereal stripes across the rumpled sheets. I woke slowly, a delicious languor spreading through my limbs, a stark contrast to the terror that had gripped me just hours before. The scent of Cynthia's perfume, now mingled with the fresh, clean smell of her skin, surrounded me, intoxicating and utterly comforting. My eyes fluttered open to find myself entwined with her, her head nestled in the crook of my neck, her breathing soft and even. Her fiery red hair fanned out across the pillow, a vibrant splash against the pristine white. A profound sense of peace settled over me, a quiet joy I hadn't realized I was missing until this very moment. It was deeper than mere relief from danger. It was a soul-deep contentment. The fear of the flight, which had seemed so all-consuming, now felt distant, like a bad dream. In its place was this undeniable, tangible warmth beside me, a living, breathing testament to the most unexpected turn my life had ever taken. I carefully shifted, gently pulling back a strand of her hair from her face. Her eyelids fluttered, and then those incredible green eyes slowly opened, meeting mine. There was a moment of silent acknowledgement, a shared understanding that transcended words. A soft smile played on her lips, a shy tenderness that melted my heart. "Morning," she murmured, her voice husky with sleep, a sound that sent a shiver of pleasure through me. She stretched languidly, her body arching against mine, and then turned to face me fully, propping herself up on one elbow. "Morning," I replied, my voice a little breathless. My fingers instinctively reached out, tracing the curve of her jaw, feeling the soft texture of her skin. Last night was... I started, searching for the right words to articulate the whirlwind of emotions. Cynthia's smile softened, and she gently squeezed my hand. "Last night was everything," she finished for me, her eyes shining. "Everything I never thought possible. Everything I've been hoping for, even when I didn't know what I was hoping for." She confessed her own long-held attraction, the subtle, patient way she had tried to draw me out. "You're so careful, Alice," she explained, her thumb tracing patterns on my arm. So closed off, in the most beautiful way. I knew there was so much more beneath the surface, and I just wanted to see it, to know it. There was no arrogance in her admission, only a profound vulnerability that touched me deeply. My own words, when they came, tumbled out in a rush, a torrent of confession and self-discovery. I spoke of my ingrained perceptions, my unwavering belief in a certain path for myself, the utter bewilderment at the feelings she had stirred within me. I never saw myself this way, Cynthia," I admitted, my voice raw with emotion. "I always thought, but with you it's different. It's like you opened a door I didn't even know existed." We talked for what felt like hours, the sunlight growing brighter, painting the room in vibrant hues. Our conversation was punctuated by gentle touches, lingering gazes, and soft, reaffirming kisses. Each word exchanged, each shared glance, seemed to deepen the connection, solidifying the fragile, beautiful bond that had been forged in the crucible of chaos. In her eyes, I saw not judgment, but a profound understanding, a mirroring of my own confusion and burgeoning joy. A healing began within me, a gentle mending of a part of myself I hadn't even known was broken. The rigid structures of my self-identity, which had once felt like protective walls, now felt like constricting cages. With Cynthia, I felt an astonishing sense of freedom, a permission to be messy, to be uncertain, to simply feel. She wasn't just a new love, she was a catalyst. She wasn't just a person, she was a landscape of possibility I was just beginning to explore. My attraction to her, which had once been a source of internal panic, now felt like the most natural, most inevitable thing in the world. As we finally rose, the quiet intimacy of the morning lingering in the air, I looked at Cynthia, truly looked at her, and realized that in the face of death, I hadn't just confessed my feelings. I had, in that terrifying, beautiful moment, finally found myself. The Alice I had known was gone, replaced by someone new, someone open, someone finally, gloriously, alive to a connection she had never dared to dream of. The months that followed were a testament to the transformative power of that terrifying flight and the bond born from its ashes. My life, once a meticulously organized series of predictable events, had been gently, yet irrevocably, reshaped. The fear of that day, which had brought me to my knees, ultimately lifted me to heights I never imagined, introducing me to a depth of feeling I hadn't known I possessed. My perspective on everything had shifted. The meticulous order I once craved, the comfort I found in routine, was now balanced with a newfound spontaneity. I still valued efficiency, but I also learned the profound beauty of embracing the unexpected, of letting go of the reins sometimes. My internal struggles, the constant battle between composure and burgeoning emotion, had given way to a quiet confidence, a serene acceptance of my authentic self. My relationship with Cynthia deepened with each passing day, a vibrant tapestry woven from shared laughter, unwavering support, and a connection that continued to surprise and delight me. We navigated the complexities of a workplace romance with a discretion that added an almost thrilling layer to our connection. Our stolen glances across the cabin, the brush of hands in the galley that only we understood, the knowing smiles exchanged over the heads of passengers, these subtle gestures became our private language, a quiet, powerful force that bound us together. Cynthia, ever observant, noticed the changes in me. "You're different, Alice," she'd murmur, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw as we lay tangled in bed in some distant city. "More radiant, like a flower finally turning to the sun." And she was right. I, once so reticent, now found myself more expressive, more vulnerable, more authentically Alice. I talked more openly, laughed more freely, and allowed myself to simply be, without the constant pressure to maintain a perfect facade. For Cynthia, too, our bond brought a subtle shift. Her boisterous charm remained, but I noticed a deeper tenderness in her, a grounding she hadn't possessed before. My quiet strength seemed to complement her vibrant energy, creating a harmony that felt profoundly right. She found solace in my steady presence, a calm port in her sometimes tempestuous sea. Our story, born from the brink of disaster, became a testament to healing. The past trauma of the flight, the lingering shock of facing mortality, had been soothed by the balm of her companionship, by the overwhelming sense of belonging I found in her arms. It showed me that unexpected connections, even those that challenge every preconceived notion, can lead to the most profound personal growth. Years passed, blurring into a vibrant tapestry of flights, layovers, and quiet moments of shared intimacy. We saw the world, hand in hand, each new city a backdrop to our evolving bond. The fear of that storm, which had almost consumed me, faded into a distant memory, replaced by a profound gratitude. It had shaken my world, yes, but in doing so, it had cleared the path for Cynthia, for us. My worldview had been completely, gloriously transformed. I no longer feared the unknown. I embraced it. I no longer ran from difficult emotions. I learned to sit with them, to understand them. Cynthia didn't just open a door. She showed me an entire world I hadn't known existed within myself, a capacity for connection and joy that transcended all my carefully constructed boundaries. My heart, once a meticulously guarded vault, was now wide open, beating in joyful rhythm with hers, a beautiful, undeniable testament to the bond that had defied gravity, weather, and all my expectations.